All right, good afternoon. Hope everybody had a productive week. This video is kind of a twofold. I've got this old Pixel 3 camera that I think has a pretty nice audio, and I know the video is good, but I think the audio section is pretty effective, and I'm going to be doing some for one of my audio forums that I dick around, and I might be putting up some music. But I wanted to check this phone out. Ain't no sense it sitting there wasting, so I'm using it as a video camera. I think I've done so before, but anyway, I thought it'd be a good idea today to do memes and review. I haven't done that in a while. As most of you probably know, those of you that are my Facebook friends, I typically use Facebook as my op-ed. I did that since 7th grade, so there's nothing new, me being highly opinionated about all things politic. For us, it was the Auburn Dam project. We were really excited about that, and we kind of watched the nut job environmental movement and envy. Because see, we used to build things because they were cool and they were fun, and the idea was, oh, there's going to be more boating and real estate value was going to go up in the area, and buy some of that land up there on those high spots, and you can live well, make some money. It's a good investment. We thought that way about things, and somewhere along the line, envy got in there. I was actually in a social situation not too long ago where a guy was taking a great deal of pride for being one of the people who put the kibosh to the Auburn Dam project. Boy, we could sure use that storage now. But I was in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade going from excited to holy crap, that isn't going to happen. And it was very disheartening. And watching the wheels of the radicals, who now control all the water in California, by the way, and most of the earth. I think one of the memes talks about that. They're starting to control the money now. We call that ESGs. What's an ESG? That is an environmental social governance and refers to the three key factors when measuring sustainability and ethical impact of an investment in a business or company. Most socially responsible investors, like if you don't do this, you're not one, check companies out using ESG criteria. And the big people controlling the money, and I'm not going to use the names because I don't want to get in trouble, but the big lenders, I'm talking about the big ones. I don't know enough about those companies to use their name, but they literally are deciding who gets money based on that word soup right there, including oil exploration money. So I see my brightness is kind of coming and going on this phone. It's kind of interesting. I might have a setting to change there, but memes and review. Let's go back to that. So earlier this week, I posted a new video surfaces a fatal attack on a Bronx cab driver. And it is a horrific video. It's on YouTube. It's available. And I said this seems very oppressive because they killed him because they didn't want to pay for a cab ride. A group of five youths of color. And but that needs to be talked about. Because you can bet if it was 5 white cops beating up on a black man, we'd still be hearing about it. But I said, BLM, where are you? And I know that seems cynical, but I mean that. I'd like to know if Black Lives really mattered, they would be infiltrating neighborhoods of this type after one of these incidents and comforting the non-criminal elements in those neighborhoods and starting to communicate, kind of like Curtis Sliwa did back in New York with the gangbangers and whatnot of all stripes. He wasn't too color conscious about that, because certainly Johnson's Great Society didn't just impact people of color. There's a lot of white trash living in squalor too, and I say that with humor. I can, right? And they're not trash. They're stuck, just like lots of other people, in a system that we've created. Most of the poverty in this country we subsidize, and it's keeping some people in power, huh? Anyway, I drift around, so that's what that meme was about. I appreciate you if you're still hanging in with my little test here. This one is eating bugs stops the weather. You know, these same people, environmental social governance folks. The WHO is real, World Health Organization. Davos really is a real thing. Elites getting together and making decisions on behalf of the global community. And of course, who's the other big one that's got their own website now that they're actually, it eludes me now. Anyway, I like FEE, the Foundation for Education, Economic Education. That's my favorite. Anyway, but there's actually talk of this. You'll notice you see this stuff popping up. It's nothing to get scared about, but they're actually softening people up to. You know why people eat bugs? Because they live in squalor and they don't have any choice. Bugs aren't better than other food. Nobody ever said I'd prefer a cockroach over a French fry. That's never happened in any country anywhere on earth. People eat bugs because they're living in squalor and poverty, and it's an adaptation. Kind of like eating bats, huh? All right. Never mind the stimulus package too much, but let's talk about the loan forgiveness. There's no such a thing as loan forgiveness. It's simply another method of transferring wealth. A five-figure handout to the educated, and it's appalling. Biden, Hollow Joe bought votes. That's what he's doing here, and people are digesting this like, oh, it's compassion. No, this isn't compassion. That's not what's going on here. So my question, or I said, if you are a productive citizen, and they don't even know how much it's going to cost. And by the way, the founders set this up where Congress has the purse strings. I wouldn't want Donald Trump making I said $500 billion bill is essentially what you'd be charged, what will be charged for Hollow Joes to buy votes. It's going to come to torches and pitchforks because by the time most wake up, that's all we have left. And by that, I mean, there's people that, if you think that this is a good thing even at all, to encourage people not to fulfill their obligations because government's going to, how do you think we got here? How do you think, again, back to the Johnson's Great Society, how do you think we built all those ghettos where people of all stripes are trapped in the vicious cycle? Even hip hop and rap, most of those tunes, they're blaming the wrong people. They think they're oppressed when the fact is they're trapped, and that's a fact. Anyway, I know there's some good stuff out there, but a lot of that I, me, my, blaming the other people for your problems that is often, and then glorifying a lifestyle where you're actually trapped in poverty and the only way out is to bang your way out or to rap your way out. I'd like better for everybody than that. But anyway, I thought this was kind of but the whole student loan forgiveness, he's just buying votes, and it's absolutely horrendous, and his constituents seemingly don't care. Some of them even think it's a good thing. Those of us that are responsible adults, we can't find anything. There's nothing good about that. By the way, those same loans, it's a scam. It's been going on for the last 30 or 40 years. It's actually raised tuition across the board, just like Medicare and Medicaid have raised health costs. If the government's only going to reimburse a doctor 30% for a Medicare patient, then those of us actually paying for our insurance are going to pay that difference, and no difference here. And rates keep going up. That's how that works. Government doesn't ever fix anything, just so we're clear. They haven't They want you to have an electric car so you won't be able to drive out of your smart city. Plus the ability to shut it down remotely. That is a bill that was actually in. The Democrats were beating that around, and Republicans with this kind of control, they're often on board with that kind of crap. If the cops are chasing, we want to be able to shut you down. That's the seemingly a safety goal. But that again, it's not as, nobody's probably saying this, right, at the cocktail parties where the elites are doing their thing. But you can bet that in context, because I'm sure the fact checkers will get a hold of it, this is a very real deal. There is no way, absolutely no way, that batteries and extension cords are going to replace the mobility that we currently enjoy in this nation. No way. That Western civilization enjoys, actually. And it is a huge deal to be able to go out and get in your vehicle and travel anywhere on the continent that you want. I think people underestimate how beautiful we have it. I routinely drive cross country. Prefer that to flying because they've ruined that now, right? Hell, they ruined that about just about the time they stopped allowing cigarettes on planes. It was actually better when there were smoking area on planes. We were still having a pretty damn good time on those airplanes. I guarantee you that, man. I've probably got a 250,000 flying miles as a young man with a certain career that I had, and we had a ball on airplanes. And getting on, getting off. Airport bars, people were friendly and nicer. We weren't, having our orify x-rayed and whatnot and magnetized to get on an airplane. It was much better. But anyway, the context here is that going green really means it's a code for you being limited and restricted. And I noticed that in everything. For 20 years, they've been telling you to worry about your thermostat. Can't use paper. We're cutting down forests. No, we don't cut down forests. Old growth forest to make paper bags. But we never have. We grow sugar pines as a crop. It's very renewable and sustainable. Savannah, Georgia, Shreveport, Louisiana. There's big paper mills that grow their own trees specifically to make that have good pulp to make paper. The forests have never been in danger because of paper bags. Not even a little. What kind of bags are you using? I go to the store and I say, I don't use as many as you want. You're doing the work. You pick out what kind of bags you want me to have. I shouldn't even have to have that conversation. But it dumbfounds them. Well, we have to charge you 10 cents each. I'm aware of that. I've been doing this a while. This is in California. We don't do that everywhere else. But just the fact that we're constantly having to think about every little bit of energy we use and everything that we throw away, it's neurosis, man. It's just not necessary. And so limited and restricted. How come it always falls back onto you to save? I say burn it up, baby. I'm a conservationist, man. Put your litter away. Don't throw your shit out the window of your car. And use your resources effectively, but enjoy using them. That's life. And it's going to be a water restriction device they're talking about. This one's probably clickbait, but again, the flow restriction devices they're talking about installing and the fines that come with it. The discussions being had, I don't know that some of these. But I absolutely believe that much of that movement, and I'm watching California dry up, not because there's a drought, but because we mismanage our water. Was it one of my favorite guys? Was it Mises or Hazlitt or Rothbard? Anyway, they said if you put the government in charge of sand, there'd be a shortage of sand in the Sahara Desert. If you put government in charge of the Sahara Desert, that we'd have a shortage of sand, and that's a fact. The brutality of the transatlantic slave trade. There were active participants on the continent. We didn't go in and just go into the jungles and yank people out of there. And it talks about that really it was about economics, not racism. The racism kind of happened on the back end of it as Western civilization, starting with the Quakers and then some folks on the European continent. The racism came in for two reasons: a misunderstanding, because the Negroids do look much different than many Europeans had been exposed to otherwise, other than seeing them as laborers, and then, but mostly, and then the Democrats in the South had to have people believe that their slave population was less than. And by the way, there were lots of black people living in the Northeast already, that outside of slavery before, and even some of them were certainly abolitionists, but they weren't sure what it would look like when less refined, and I'm just talking about education and whatnot, folks were released from slavery. There was a lot of fear about that, even amongst the people that knew it was wrong. But the Democrats at the time were the ones that were really hammering on the race thing, that they were inadequate and not as smart and savage and all that crap. There were plenty of examples elsewhere in the country that people knew better than that. But the racism thing came later as the result of certain folks wanting to hold on to their slaves. So it was something that was added to the pie to get people to be afraid. But racism was not the reason for the Atlantic slave trade. It just wasn't. It was economics. This is a great article at Mises.org to read about that. And Thomas Sowell and others have written extensively about that. Um, so, and it wasn't uncommon, anywhere in the world. There was nothing unique about that, the Atlantic slave trade. Oh, one other thing about that, and that's not in this article, but you can find lots of. Actually, you were lucky. I mean, if you were going to be caught up in that, to end up in the Americas, because typically the populations grew um, as a slave here for obvious reasons. But at least in the Americas, or and particularly in the South and Southern United States, you weren't worked to death, and most slaves that went north of up into that the Muslims took up into Malaysia and whatnot, and of course in the Middle East, they were worked to death. Many of them castrated so they couldn't breed, and worked to death. Most of the women actually were just used as sex slaves and concubines and house servants. So, as horrendous as it was, well, the population, the black population actually grew in the Americas and throughout the Caribbean, right? Um, Despite being slaves, and that didn't happen in many other places that people were going. Doesn't justify anything. I shouldn't even have to say that. But what we're being told that the Atlantic slave trade to the Americas was a race thing is just not. That's just not so. It was an economics thing and an available labor thing, as slavery had been for millennia. And then it's dog day. There's my dog. And here it is. This is my final take on the student loan. This is Samuel Adams once said, "Crouch down and lick the hand that feeds you. May your chains rest lightly upon you, and may posterity forget that you were our countrymen." If you think it's a good idea, you are outside of the auspices of understanding what to be a responsible, hardworking, actualized human being in America should mean. That you honor your handshake, you look people in the eye, you pay your bills. If you think you were duped, don't do that again. Caveat emptor. Caveat emptor. Buyer beware. And then Jimmy Carter, give credit where credit was due. He lifted stifling regulations relative to rail and trucking industries, and did some other things too. This is a great little video. I'm thinking it came from Reason Magazine. So get on their web. That's a great website. They're a little too reasonable for my taste, but they make a lot of excuses for people because they want to appear to be reasonable. We could be in bigger trouble than they admit, but I love Reason Magazine, and at least there's some libertarians over there. And here's my favorite. Back to the ESGs. There's Ron Paul at Rumble talking about. All of these alternate energy sources, many of them are, since that whole environmental, social, and governance type lending they're getting, and other perfectly viable businesses are not. And so I thought that was pretty interesting as well. Anyway, I'm going to tune this video up, see what it sounds like, see if I can move the file. Sometimes that's difficult. And in spite of all that, I do all of this with a smile on my face, and I don't know that went anywhere, but it's a suitable test for this camera. And I want you to know that when I'm using Facebook as my op-ed, I'm not taking myself too seriously either. I mean, the bottom line is we should all be able to have discussions, laugh at the nonsense. Gosh, it's crazy out there. And then realize what great lives we have. But I do have a genuine worry that we're squandering the greatest place on earth to fit into a global community that seems to run on envy and beating people down into submission and not having it too good. And there's no reason for that, man. The American experience shows that when, particularly in the 19th century, early 20th century, when people are unfettered, man, great things can happen. Anyway, that's just enough out of that. We need to not squander that. And that's what a lot of, anytime you get governments in control of anything, you're going to create shortages. I think they're doing it on purpose. False scarcity is a great way to gather control. And we see it with California water, the whole anti-fossil fuel movement. Man, there's just too much of it. We've discovered so much of it in the last 30 years that the whole shortage thing, we're going to run out thing, it's a non sequitur. Because that used to be the deal. And one other observation. Notice as soon as about the nuclear power thing kind of bumped up as an alternative, just shortly after Biden was talking, well, after he said he was going to attack the oil and gas industry, and which he did, and you're paying more for that everywhere, not just at the pump, by the way. And nuclear starts getting a little bit of grumble, and you want to talk about how insidious the machine is. You go look at your cable television schedule, and here comes the movies that start back up again. Chernobyl, the China Syndrome. There's a couple of others. Some other documentaries mysteriously pop up about the day, and always the undertone is how dangerous nuclear power is. Anyway, the solution lies there. Our cars aren't destroying the planet. Our diesels moving our food around are not destroying the planet. Our trains moving all of our goods and services are not destroying the planet. Us going on vacation, people in their recreational vehicles with cheap fuel enjoying their retirement are not destroying the planet, folks. It's just not so. And batteries and extension cords are limiting. It is like having your wings clipped. And they know damn good and well we can't... That's unsustainable. Dragging 2,000-pound battery around with you everywhere you go. Are you kidding me? Come on. Anyway, thanks for sticking with me. If you stayed this long, 21 minutes is a minute and 29 seconds too long. I'll catch up with you later. Try not to get any on you.